Advance and be recognized, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SItrep podcast channel, your forward operations base for all things military and historical wargaming. I am your host, Oriskany Jim, and you can probably at least broadly guess where we're going with this week's content, given that this week is the 80th anniversary of Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of the Normandy beaches in France, 6th of June, 1944. Specifically, we're using Mark Ritchie's tactical combat system to take a look at some of the action that took place behind Sword Beach, easternmost of the Allied invasion beaches, primarily under the assault of the British 3rd Infantry Division. So I won't go through all of the context and background for the Normandy invasion. If you're watching this channel, you're familiar with the basics. We had Utah and Omaha Beach over there with the Americans, followed by Gold Beach for the British, Juno for the Canadians, and then again with the British, Sword Beach over to the east. There were also massive airborne drops. This is going to be the American 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions behind Utah Beach and the British 6th Airborne Division behind Sword. Into the British Sword Beach sector, the intervention of German armor was one of the key factors in Allied planning. This is because one of the few solid German divisions in the area, 21st Panzer, was lurking nearby and ready to respond. Thus we have the British airborne drops at Pegasus Bridge and Horsa Bridge, which famously cut key crossings over the Orne River and Orne Canal in order to keep 21st Panzer from hitting Sword Beach in the flank. Successful as these airborne operations were, they didn't completely keep 21st Panzer Division out of the battle. Certain elements of 21st Panzer were able to get into position and strike northwards towards Sword Beach. This is despite Allied air superiority and a very muddled situation when it comes to German command structure. 21st Panzer's divisional commander was actually in Paris that day, and one of the German overall commanders was of course Erwin Rommel, who was in Germany on the 6th of June celebrating the birthday of his wife. There was also a lot of mud in the water as far as authorization as to when and if German panzer reserves were going to be released, because again, the Germans thought that the main Allied attack was going to come up at Pas-de-Calais. One of the few German units to kind of get their together that day was Kampfgruppe Oppeln, again from 21st Panzer Division. This included elements of the recently renamed 22nd Panzer Regiment, the 1st Battalion of the 192nd Panzer Grenadier Regiment, and 3rd Battalion of the 155th Panzer Artillery Regiment. These guys all got together and started driving north toward the Sword Beach assault sector and were met coming the other way by British elements coming off of Sword Beach. These British units would include elements of the 27th Armoured Brigade and the 185th Brigade, including duplex drive Shermans of the 13th and 18th Royal Hussars, King Shropshire Light Infantry, and more Shermans, including some Fireflies, of the Staffordshire Yeomanry. Historically, the King Shropshire Light Infantry reached the critical high ground of Périers Ridge first, although already under heavy German small arms and mortar fire. Now, Kampfgruppe Oppeln showed up and tried to take this high ground back, however they were held off, especially as more tanks of the 13th and 18th Hussars, and especially those heavier tanks of Staffordshire Yeomanry showed up. And that's the engagement for today's 50mm table, folks. We have Mike and John playing the Germans, Devin and myself playing the British. Yes, shock horror. For once, Oriskany Jim is going to play the British. Our basic mission is to rush forward with our Shermans as quickly as we can, get to those King's Shropshire Light Infantry on Périers Ridge, and then fend off the counterattack from Kampfgruppe Oppeln. The problem is, Kampfgruppe Oppeln is bringing some absurd and ridiculous levels of firepower to the table, as we'll see in the video. So how about we go to the footage, and we see how our 80th anniversary commemorative game for Sword Beach turns out. Okay, so here is our map for the table, 8 feet by 6 feet in 15mm. Generally speaking, we're looking out of the west into the east. So north is to your left. That's where the British forces are going to be coming on, and the German forces, of course, are going to be coming in from the south. Now, I'm not entirely sure how obvious it is, but right there in the top center of your screen, there is some high ground that represents Périers Ridge, and that's the ground that we're going to have to hold for today's scenario. Taking a closer look here and lowering the altitude a little bit, this is the northern end of the table that we're more or less floating above, and this is where the British forces, that's me and Devin, are going to be coming in from. Hopefully now you can see a little bit more how that ridge is shaped. And there are some of our tanks ready to come down the road, generally from Ouistreham down toward Caen. Here we see some of our tanks coming on the table. Clearly this is Staffordshire Yeomanry. You can tell because only Staffordshire Yeomanry had Fireflies on that day. But ahead of them are some other Shermans, some duplex drive Shermans. Clearly you can see those big skirts around them. Those are going to be the 13th and 18th Royal Hussars. There's also some lighter armor, some M5 Stuarts, and some reconnaissance vehicles. That's going to be King Shropshire's Light Infantry, and again, the 13th, 18th Royal Hussars. So we're taking position on that high ground. Now, can we hold it? Here we see some of Devon's Stuart light tanks, and as our column has reached Périers Ridge, it of course shifts off of column and into more of a linear defense. You see where we have some infantry there thrown out to keep the Germans at a bit of a distance. And speaking of the Germans, here they come. Kampfgruppe Oppeln of 21st Panzer Division. Of course, we have a lot of the classic Mark III and Mark IV Panzers. Also, this very bizarre menagerie of French armor that's been sort of kit-bashed into use, sort of a feature of 21st Panzer at this time. Okay, after 2 turns of initial maneuvering, we finally have some targets with mutual line of sight, so it's time to open fire. We've got 2 of Devon's Stuart light tanks that are drawing a bead on this little S-35. This is an old French tank left over from the 1940 campaign, captured by the Germans and now pressed into German service. They're both on react, so let's shoot. So a lot of the firing in this game is resolved by D20s. You want to roll low. And with a 3 and a 9, looks like Devon has scored 2 hits with his 2 Stuarts. Awesome. Now, as we move into the next step, which is to determine where on the tank those rounds have hit, we got to watch out because there is a stone wall in front of that S-35. That stone wall is going to eat one of those rounds. So while the S-35 has missed with its simultaneous fire, one of Devon's rounds went into the brick, the other of Devon's rounds hit the hull, shocked the tank, and wounded one of the crew. First blood has been drawn. Okay, time for Risky Jim to start shooting at some French tanks. I've got 2 of my little ugly ducklings here, my duplex drive Shermans of 13th, 18th Hussars, and I'm going to shoot at that same tank. You see it has a little white marker on there. That indicates that it is shocked. The crew is sort of jarred out of alignment because they just took hits from Devon's Stuarts. I gotta be careful though, because here come those real tanks, those German tanks. They scare me a little bit. So, alright, let me see if I can wear down some of this old French-built armor before the real tanks arrive. Alright, so we've done all the math. I need a 7 to hit on a D20, 2 Shermans, 2 D20s. Alright, that 17 is clearly a miss, but that 3 is one hell of a hit. Next, I have to see where on the enemy tank I've actually hit, and anything a 7 or below means I hit that wall. But with a 16, looks like I hit the turret. Alright, now my gun is classified as an E for armor penetration. Their front of their turret is only a D, so I get to subtract 1 from this roll. Oh man, 19, it's a bad roll. Again, you want low rolls in this game. So that 19 gets reduced only to an 18. It, again, damages the tank a little bit and wounds one of the crew. And with a 3, I outright kill him. So some poor German bastard, yeah, long story short, take your first shot, stuck his head out of the turret at the wrong time. For the Universal Carrier that was carrying my Piat crew, they just had a bit of a brush with death, because I totally didn't see this French-built half-track retrofitted with a German anti-tank gun. He took a long-range shot. I was perfectly silhouetted on high ground. Thank God he missed. What can I say? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart. Now we're on to the next turn, and my 2 Shermans, who are still in tree cover there, are going to shoot again at that same S-35. Okay, I have +2 to my previous attack because I'm now stationary. Also, I have the target acquired, so now my chance is a 10 or less on D20s. And once again, looks like I missed once and hit once. That 7 is definitely a hit. So now I have to roll the hit location. Again, I have to get over a 7 to dodge that wall. 19, looks like I hit the turret again. Once again, the Sherman's 75mm is rated as an E. The S-35's front turret armor is only a D, so I get to subtract 1 from this. 3 minus 1 equals a 2. That's going to get the job done. That tank is blown apart, and she's afire. A couple of Devon Stuarts have scored some additional hits on still more German armor coming onto the table. The target that's been struck is another one of these very bizarre former French vehicles kit-bashed into German service with very, very thin armor. So let's see how Devon does on his armor penetration check. A 4 minus a 3 equals a final result of 1. Long story short, take your second shot. That assault gun is out of gas. So now my little Stuart Recce vehicles are trying to get into the fight. They're basically Stuart light tanks with the turrets removed, converted into improvised APCs. All they have is 50 caliber machine guns, but hey, they get 3 shots apiece. So I took my 6 shots, I scored 3 hits, and now I'm going to see what kind of wounds I can inflict on the German crews on those open-top vehicles that we saw downrange in those farm fields a second ago. Alright, so I scored 3 hits, I want to roll low. What I really want to roll is in the box. Oh my god. Okay, I finally get them all in the box. Alright, that 3 is going to be a kill, and then that 9 and that 15 are going to be 2 light wounds. We're now at the beginning of turn 6, and so far the British are doing pretty well. Here's that Périers Ridge high ground I've been talking about. So far, we've taken that, and we've got a pretty good line of defense set up. I've got a Piat team hidden in that farmhouse. There's the universal carrier that brought them. Meanwhile, the Germans, they seem to have divided a little bit between their French-built armor and their German armor. I'm not so sure about that. If we can destroy one element in detail, that might wind up giving us the game. But I tell you what, it's those German tanks down there. Those are the real threat. We're going to have to counter that with some of our Staffordshire Yeomanry reinforcements coming up. We see the usual British late war troop of 1 Firefly and 3 Vanilla Shermans. Interestingly, looks like that second troop has a Crusader anti-aircraft tank in it. What's all this happy horse shit? Looks like someone took out one of Devon Stewart's when I wasn't looking. It was another one of these very bizarre French rebuilt into German service assault guns down here. Alright, actually they were trading fire, and a lot of the fire in this game is simultaneous. Looks like Devon's return fire has scored 2 hits, and with a 10 and a 20, that's going to be 1 hit in the hull and 1 hit in the turret, or in this case, the superstructure. So we'll do that one first, since the armor is thinner there. Oh man, with a 1, yeah, long story short, take your 3rd shot. Good night, sweet prince. Alright, here comes the real problem. Enough fun beating up on French-built tanks. Now we've got some actual German tanks coming in. Now that Mark III in that wheat field there just put a 5cm shell into my little farmhouse and has killed a couple of the guys in there, wounded a couple of them. Whether or not the Piat guy was killed or not, we have to roll to see whether or not the Piat itself was destroyed and whether or not one of my guys can pick it up and return fire. So I need an 8 or less at this range to shoot back with the Piat, and with a 17, that's a wild miss. Alright, so yeah, things are going to heat up now that the tougher German units are getting into the fight. Again, these are the Mark III and Mark IV Panzers that are trying to flank Périers Ridge. Okay, the battle on Périers Ridge continues to heat up. You see where my Stuart Recce vehicle there has been shocked or pinned down with that little white marker there. Meanwhile, the next vehicle has suffered a killed crew member. Not so happy about that. But they put down plenty of 50 caliber fire. They've killed 2 members of that crew in that French-built anti-aircraft vehicle, reducing its rate of fire from a 4 to a 2. Meanwhile, the last guy in my Piat crew, my little forlorn hope here, he picks up the Piat, probably from one of his killed squad mates, and takes a shot on that Mark III in that wheat field there. I need an 8. Cool, I scored a 2. That's going to be a solid hit this time. Now we got to figure out where on the Mark III I hit, because it has different armor values. 16 is going to be a hit in the turret. Alright, I get to subtract 6 from this roll for armor penetration, but, oh man, 18. Now I dice crap out on me. Alright, 18 minus 6 still gives me a 12 though, which damages the gun on the Mark III. You see the little red button there on his main gun. That's something. Meanwhile, this S-35 is going to take a poke at me, and yep, looks like he has scored a hit and a kill on my Stuart Recce vehicle. So, that's how you want to be about it. Alright. So now some of the Staffordshire Yeomanry are beginning to show up as reinforcements, and I am diverting some of them over to the west to head off where the Germans are trying to outflank Périers Ridge. You see the Firefly Sherman there, and again, 3 of the Vanilla Shermans. That Sherman right there had a bit of a pants-shitting moment. He's hulled down behind that little contour there, and when Mr. Panzerfaust took a shot at me, I was okay because he has to roll over a 14 in order to hit me over the hull down shielding unless he rolls a natural 1, which of course he does. But then for damage, he rolls a natural 20, the worst roll in the game. So a perfect shot with a dud round. Lady Luck is having a little bit of fun with the both of us on this one. I hope this comes out on the camera here, but what I'm really trying to do with the exact positioning of my tanks is what some people call division by terrain, or division of fires, where you want all of your force to be able to see only part of the enemy force. That way you sort of achieve a local superiority. Like these two Shermans here I positioned them so that these three guys way down the road couldn't see me, but only one of those S-35s can see me. That way I can engage part of the force and engage the enemy in detail. Into turn 7, and two more of my duplex drive Shermans of 18th, 13th Royal Hussars. That's them right there. They're going to go ahead and take their reaction shot against that S-35 hanging out by that farmhouse. I'm up to a 13 chance to hit because I'm short range, I'm unbuttoned, I am not moving, and I have the target acquired. So 2d20 for my two Shermans, that's definitely going to be 2 hits. Awesome. Now I have to determine where those hits landed on the target. Alright, that's going to be 2 hits in the hull. Now I have to get through the armor. I get to subtract 1 from these rolls. That 6 reduces to a 5. That's certainly going to be another kill. Okay, the long-anticipated battle between the heavier tanks in this game, that's going to be 22nd Panzer Regiment and Staffordshire Yeomanry, now gets underway along the western flank of Périers Ridge. I've got one Sherman there that is going to try and take a poke at that German Mark IV peeking around the corner of that orchard. So, I need a 10 to hit because of terrain bonuses. I get a 9. I barely hit him. Alright, now I need to roll hit location. 15 is going to be a hit in the turret. Alright, my E-gun matches his turret armor E exactly, so no modifiers on this roll. Okay, that's a kill on the Mark IV by my Sherman. That was just a lucky hit. Alright, now the Germans are going to fire some big battlefield rockets off of their little kit-bashed Stuka-Sufus.
What?
Stuka-Sufus.
What?
Stuka-Sufus.
What did I hear you say?
The Oompa Loompas is what we're going to call it from now on.
Give me a hell yeah!
That's unanimous.
Fortunately, they don't roll very well because they roll a 15 and a 14. Nice high rolls. Good luck for the British. And they're considered artillery, so now we're going to roll for scatter. Now how this works is the D8 indicates the scatter direction, and the D20 indicates its distance. Now these are pretty inaccurate, sort of Nebelwerfer family rockets, so this number is going to double. Alright, so now we are measuring the location of where these rounds are actually going to land. You see that little white button there in your lower left? That's the first round. The second round missed its target, but it hit a bunch of our other Shermans square in the teeth. Oh man. Here we see the hit location for that first impact, that little white button surrounded by all the smoke. The smoke generally outlines its area of effect, and yeah, my two duplex drive Shermans, they took a heck of a shot. That Stuart also has a killed crew member. Some of these tanks are also immobilized. Not good. But that second round is even worse. That salvo drifts and lands directly on a full troop of Devon's Shermans. The poor guy went into the men's room for a second. He came out and boom, he lost all these tanks. His whole left wing was gone. So again, my guys took a hell of a shot. Again, killed crew members, immobilized, all those vehicles are shocked, but at least they're still there. But we basically just lost our left wing. Over on the western side of Périers Ridge, we're still in a bit of a tank duel where the Germans are trying to flank us by the right. So my Sherman there is going to go ahead and take a shot at that half-track, that French-built half-track that's hanging out in that orchard. Alright, so I'm on higher ground, I'm unbuttoned, I'm at short range, I've got a bunch of positive modifiers. However, he is in terrain. I wind up with a chance of an 11 to hit. So with an 8, okay, cool, I did score another lucky hit. Now I have to roll hit location. I mean, even though a half-track doesn't really have a turret. And, I mean, come on, we're talking about a half-track that's been struck by a Sherman's main gun. You do the math. It's negative 10 off this 11. That comes out to a modified 1, and yeah, that's the end of him. Meanwhile, looks like some German infantry has begun to sneak up on us here, including a very annoying demolitions team. You see the guy there with a little demo tag on his base. He's slinging out satchel charges. He's within 10 centimeters against my Shermans, and he's actually doing pretty well there. You see a couple KIA markers there on my tanks. So, not cool, man. I'm trying to engage him and suppress him with bow machine guns. Meanwhile, we've also engaged this French-built anti-tank gun, assault gun, whatever you want to call it. Whatever, he's junk now. But meanwhile, we're also still engaged with these German tanks. I'm trading blows with this Mark IV at the corner of that orchard there. He can't hit me, and I can't get through his armor. Meanwhile, I'm going to have to reposition that Firefly because of the shallow angle there. You can see where he has to shoot through much more of the allowed 10 centimeters. You're allowed to shoot through an orchard in order to hit a target. Through it all, however, this is the part of the battlefield that matters, this high ground here on Périers Ridge. And you can see where the Germans tried to swing around it and flank it from the west. But Devin and I have our Staffordshire Yeomanry there. We're holding them off for now. Meanwhile, we also have some naval artillery fire coming in, but honestly, it winds up not doing very much. So after something of a pause because of that massive rocket strike followed by the smoke screens the Germans have dropped on us, the battle on our left wing is beginning to warm up again. So what the Germans are trying to do here is push up with more of this converted French armor and make a last bid to gain the high ground. These guys have come up, this guy has just entered the courtyard, he scored a hit on that Stuart, killed one of the crew members. Meanwhile, my two Shermans are putting shells into that building where German infantry are hiding. There's not too many of them left though. And I gotta keep an eye on some of this self-propelled artillery that John is trying to swing up on the other side. Meanwhile, this Stuart has scored a hit on another one of these French conversions here, put the round through the aluminum siding armor on that bonkers looking superstructure and destroyed the vehicle. The Germans aren't giving up yet though because, oh man, what got blown up over here? Looks like a Panzer strike just put a round into one of our Shermans. Damn it, that was a Firefly too. Damn it, Devin, what are you doing pushing forward? We need to be pulling back onto Périers Ridge. Speaking of Périers Ridge, this French converted armor here is going to put a 75mm shell into my Sherman. And despite my hold down position, he has scored a hit. Let's see if it gets through the armor. Oh god, 5 minus 3 is going to be a 2. Yeah, that Sherman has finally bit the big one. Such successes notwithstanding, however, halfway through turn 13, our German opponents honorably concede the game because the maximum length of our scenario today was 15 turns, and with only 1.5 turns left, they were not going to get appreciable armor up onto this ridge. I'm hoping this ridge comes out on camera a little bit, guys. There is elevation sort of under the table surface, so I hope you guys can see it. I'm kind of tracing it out with my finger. But our exact victory conditions in today's scenario were who could get more scenario points worth of equipment or units onto that ridge. Now, while a lot of our stuff is burning, we still have a Firefly. We still have a Sherman, although his gun's knocked out. I'm not sure if he counts. We have a Stuart Recce vehicle there. We've got plenty of infantry. You see these units here. A couple universal carriers and a half-track. Meanwhile, I'm pulling my Staffordshire Yeomanry back off of that western covering position, again, to stack up more scenario points on the key objective. And yeah, that's going to be the game there, folks, because the Germans aren't even close. But nevertheless, great game, Mike and John. Thanks for all the help, Devin. We made a great team there, and great scenario by Mark Ritchie. I hope you guys have enjoyed this 80th anniversary D-Day Wargame. And that's game, folks. As you saw, we wound up with a pretty historical result, with the British well-blooded but still standing tall on that high ground, with more scenario points for the British standing on Périers Ridge than the Germans. In fact, I don't think the Germans got any units onto Périers Ridge. This goes down as a bloody but solid British victory. It was a great game, especially seeing all those bizarre, almost kit-bashed pieces of German armor that the Germans tried to cobble together for 21st Panzer Division. I tell you what, man, those Stukas zu Fuß, forever nicknamed Oompa Loompas by our crew, I'm telling you, man, those things are savage. As we see in the history, however, this victory would turn into a bit of a poisoned chalice for the British, because sure, they managed to keep Kampfgruppe Oppeln from counterattacking northwards toward Sword Beach. However, the Germans at the same time managed to keep the British 185th Brigade, 3rd UK Infantry Division, out of Caen, and this town was supposed to be the primary British objective in the Sword Beach sector on D-Day. Turns out this was going to take another 33 days for the British to take, and for those of you who are familiar with battles like Bluecoat, Epsom, and Goodwood, holy hell did the British and Canadians pay one hell of a butcher's bill before they could finally take this key city. But that's going to wrap us up for today, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Please remember to hit that notification bell. Also, please consider joining the SItrep Podcast Discord. There's an auto-accept invitation link to our Discord in the description of this video. Join our community, see what everybody's up to, and best of all, show us what's happening on your hobby table. For now, this is Risky Jim with the SItrep Podcast. We are rounds complete for another episode, and as always, thank you, Mike, for watching.